The stars were silent as the mighty fleet of the Empire moved through the galaxy. Their ships, large enough to swallow whole planets, glided effortlessly through the darkness of space. Led by General Zarek, the Empire had conquered countless worlds, and now Earth was next. They had heard rumors about humanity's resilience, but to the Empire, those were nothing more than stories, legends of a primitive species with no hope against the might of a true empire. General Zarek stood at the helm of the flagship, his expression cold and calculating. His fleet was massive, over 100 ships, each equipped with devastating weapons capable of wiping out entire cities in seconds. The Empire's technology was far beyond anything humanity had ever seen. It was their ultimate weapon, and no one had ever dared to challenge it. For months, the fleet had been traveling towards Earth, passing through asteroid fields and distant solar systems. The soldiers aboard the ships were confident. After all, who could stand against the Empire? When they finally arrived in Earth's orbit, the Empire's ships descended slowly. They were giants in the sky, casting long shadows over cities. Humanity had been aware of their arrival, and panic spread like wildfire. Governments scrambled to form alliances, but no one knew how to defend against an enemy so powerful. The entire world held its breath as the Empire made its first move. They broadcasted a message to Earth, demanding immediate surrender. The message was simple, and it was direct: bow before the might of the Empire. Your planet will be ours. Resistance is futile. Earth, however, was not the helpless world the Empire thought it would be. Across the globe, people gathered to watch the broadcast. In every city, every country, millions of people stared at the massive ships above, their hearts filled with a mixture of fear and awe. Governments met in secret, attempting to come up with plans to protect their people. Some nations began preparing for war, while others sought diplomatic solutions. The future seemed uncertain. But something unexpected happened. The moment the Empire's message finished, a strange noise filled the air. At first, it was quiet, just a few chuckles. Then, it grew. Laughter. A wave of laughter spread across the planet. It began as nervous laughter, a way for people to cope with the fear. But soon, something incredible occurred: people everywhere started laughing at the Empire. The idea that this powerful, technologically advanced fleet could scare humanity seemed almost ridiculous. People began making jokes about the Empire's ships, their weapons, their leader. What started as nervous laughter quickly turned into mockery. Videos appeared online with humans poking fun at the Empire's enormous ships. Memes flooded the internet. Even children began drawing cartoons of the ships, making them look silly. To humanity, the Empire's display of power felt more like a joke than a threat. They weren't scared. They were laughing. Back aboard the flagship, General Zarek and his officers watched in disbelief. How could this be happening? How could humanity respond to their terrifying fleet with laughter? The general's face turned red with anger. The more he watched, the more he fumed. His pride, and the pride of the Empire, was wounded. Send a second message, General Zarek ordered. Make it clear that we are not to be mocked. If they do not bow, we will wipe them out. But something in his mind was beginning to shift. As the laughter continued, he felt a strange unease. What had seemed like a victory only hours ago now felt like a trap. How could a species as primitive as humanity laugh in the face of such power? The Empire had never faced anything like this before. As the fleet hovered above Earth, ready to strike, they didn't know what was coming. They thought humanity would submit in fear, but instead, they were met with something far more dangerous: laughter. And little did they know, this was only the beginning. The laughter echoed across the globe like a mighty wave crashing against a cliff, unstoppable and relentless. What began as a simple reaction to the Empire's arrival had evolved into something far more powerful. People across Earth weren't simply laughing in fear or disbelief, they were mocking the Empire's very existence. They had found humor in the alien fleet, something that the invaders had never anticipated. As the days passed, the laughter didn't fade. It grew louder. It was no longer just a nervous chuckle, but a movement. Videos, memes, and jokes flooded every social media platform, showing humanity's defiance. Some people mocked the Empire's appearance, turning their sleek, terrifying ships into cartoonish figures in humorous images. Others made parodies of General Zarek, drawing him as a clueless villain in a space opera. One particularly popular meme showed the Empire's flagship with the caption, "When you spend thousands of years to conquer the galaxy but can't conquer a punchline." At first, it seemed like just a fleeting moment. But as more and more people joined in, the laughter began to take on a life of its own. News outlets began reporting on it. Soon, entire cities were holding laugh-ins, gatherings where people came together just to laugh and share their jokes about the Empire. Even the most serious leaders of nations were seen laughing at the Empire's expense. The Empire, however, was not laughing. General Zarek's rage grew each time he saw the laughter spreading. He ordered his officers to attempt to calm the situation, but the more they tried to intimidate humanity, the stronger the laughter became. The more they sent out threatening messages, the more memes were created. It was as if humanity had found a new weapon, one that couldn't be destroyed, one that no technology could ever counter. Zarek's frustration reached its peak when he saw a live broadcast of a group of humans laughing hysterically at the Empire's weaponry. One person had taken a video showing a model of the Empire's ship, only to place it beside a tiny toy spaceship. The caption read, "When your budget cuts hit harder than expected." This enraged Zarek, but he was also confused. What was it about this laughter that was making him feel uneasy? Surely, humans couldn't fight with humor. But then why did it seem like they were mocking his fleet and, by extension, the entire Empire? Was this the strength of Earth, their ability to laugh in the face of danger? General Zarek's mind began to turn. He ordered his fleet to prepare for a show of force. "If they laugh at us, let them see true power," he muttered. The Empire's weaponry was far more advanced than anything Earth had. He had to prove that Earth was not just dealing with a joke. He would show them what happened to those who dared to mock the Empire. Meanwhile, humanity's reaction was unpredictable. Some laughed at the absurdity of the Empire's threats, others began to turn it into action. While laughter was the weapon on the surface, it was only the first step. A young engineer in a small town, who had never cared much for politics, started sketching a design for a machine that could help humanity fight back. At the same time, a scientist in a distant country began developing a virus to disable the Empire's communications. A teacher in another part of the world created a network of students who could create viral content that would distract and confuse the Empire. All over Earth, people were taking action, driven by the power of unity and the strange energy that laughter had sparked. As the laughter continued to sweep the planet, the Empire began to feel its effects. Ships in the fleet, which once moved with deadly precision, started to lose their focus. Some of the soldiers aboard had never seen anything like this before. Men and women who were used to following orders now found themselves distracted by the jokes and memes that seemed to appear everywhere. It was as if humanity had found a way to weaponize distraction, and the Empire had no way to defend against it. Zarek's frustration boiled over when one of his commanders shared a report showing that their military intelligence had been flooded with emails, every one of them a joke. One email simply read, "Your fleet is as strong as my grandma's knitting club." Enough of this. Zarek roared. He turned to his command console. "Prepare the weapons. We end this now." But even as he ordered his weapon systems to power up, something inside him began to crack. Was this really the way to deal with Earth? With humanity? The laughter, though it seemed like a weakness, had shaken his confidence. The more he tried to assert his dominance, the more he realized something horrifying: his greatest weapon was nothing compared to the force of humanity's spirit. What had seemed like an invasion had turned into a challenge, one that the Empire might not be able to win. And as Earth laughed, the one thing that became clear to General Zarek was this: the true power of humanity wasn't in their weapons or technology. It was in their ability to face impossible odds and laugh in the face of danger. The Empire's patience was wearing thin. General Zarek, once confident in his fleet's superiority, was now trapped in a strange conundrum. His weapons, his ships, and his technology could obliterate planets, but none of it seemed to have any effect on humanity's response. What should have been a simple display of power had turned into an unpredictable war of wit, and the more the Empire tried to intimidate Earth, the stronger their resistance became. On Earth, the laughter continued to echo. It wasn't just a rebellion, it had transformed into a battle of minds. Humans were using their creativity, their humor, and their intelligence to fight back, and it was working. The memes, the jokes, the viral videos, each of them was a tiny spark in an ever-growing fire of resistance. As the world continued to mock the Empire, something else was happening beneath the surface. People were organizing. A group of engineers from various countries, once strangers to one another, now worked together in secret, collaborating on designs for makeshift weapons. They knew they didn't have the firepower of the Empire, but they had something more important: ingenuity. One team developed a device that could disrupt the Empire's communication network, rendering their fleets blind and deaf. Another group worked on hacking into the Empire's surveillance systems, turning the alien technology against itself. Meanwhile, Earth's most brilliant minds came together, pooling their knowledge and resources to create a strategy that would challenge the Empire's advanced weaponry. They knew they didn't have the firepower to take on a fleet of advanced alien ships head-on, but what if they could outsmart them? Humanity had faced extinction countless times before, and yet they had always found a way to survive. This time would be no different. Back in the Empire's flagship, General Zarek was growing desperate. Despite his orders to strike Earth with overwhelming force, his officers were beginning to question his leadership. They had been watching the situation unfold, and even though they were loyal to the Empire, they couldn't ignore the strange power that Earth's resistance had uncovered. The laughter had never stopped. Even as the Empire's ships lined up for an attack, Earth's people were creating more jokes, more absurdities, and more distractions. The Empire's soldiers were confused, even distracted. Some had begun to question their orders. They couldn't understand how a species they had once thought weak was proving to be so resilient. In the Empire's command center, Zarek turned to his second-in-command, a soldier named Varnak. "You've been watching the humans closely," he said. "What do you think? How should we proceed?" Varnak stood silently for a moment, his eyes flicking to the screens where videos of humans laughing, mocking, and outwitting the Empire played. "General, with all due respect, we are not dealing with a typical enemy," Varnak said. "This is not a race that can be intimidated with force alone. They are using their minds in ways we cannot comprehend. Their laughter is more than mockery, it is a form of rebellion, a way of saying they will not bend to our will." Zarek's eyes narrowed. "I don't care how they laugh. We will crush them." Varnak shook his head slowly. "It is not their laughter that worries me, General. It is their minds. The longer we wait, the more time they have to create something that can hurt us. They are not afraid. And that makes them more dangerous than any fleet we've ever faced." The general stood still for a moment, his fists clenched. Despite his anger, he knew Varnak was right. The laughter had become a weapon, but so had Earth's ingenuity. He had underestimated them, and now they were playing a game he didn't fully understand. As the Empire's fleet prepared for a final strike, something unexpected occurred. In the heart of the world's most powerful military bases, a group of civilians, people who had never held a weapon in their lives, began to use the Empire's own technology against them. A group of hackers infiltrated the Empire's communication network, transmitting signals that confused their targeting systems. A scientist in a hidden laboratory cracked the code that would neutralize the Empire's weapons, rendering them useless. The true battle wasn't being fought with guns or missiles. It was being fought with ideas. General Zarek, furious but determined, ordered an all-out assault. He believed that if he could break humanity's will with a single, overwhelming attack, their defiance would finally end. But even as he gave the command, he felt a nagging doubt at the back of his mind. He had spent his entire life conquering worlds. He had destroyed civilizations. But this was different. He was facing something he had never encountered before, a species that didn't just fear death, but laughed in its face. A species that used creativity and unity as weapons more powerful than any laser beam or missile. As the Empire's fleet powered up its weapons, preparing for the final attack, a new message from Earth appeared on every screen across the galaxy. It was simple, but it was powerful. "Is that all you've got?" The message was accompanied by a video, a parody of the Empire's fleet, reduced to comical proportions. It was a mockery, a challenge, and a statement of humanity's unwavering defiance. Zarek clenched his fists as he watched it. For the first time, doubt crept into his mind. What if we've already lost? The battle had shifted. The Empire's fleet, once confident in its power, now faced an enemy that would fight not with weapons, but with their minds, their spirit, and the one thing the Empire could never understand, laughter. The Empire's decision to launch an all-out assault on Earth was met with a mix of defiance and disbelief. General Zarek, though furious, had to admit that humanity had caught him off guard. He had expected them to cower in fear, to break under the pressure of his fleet's firepower. But instead, they had laughed, and their laughter had turned into a wave of resistance that could not be extinguished. And now, with their backs against the wall, humanity was doing something even more unexpected. They were turning their laughter into action. In underground bunkers and abandoned buildings, humans were hard at work. They were no longer just mocking the Empire, they were planning, designing, and building. The memes, jokes, and viral videos were only the surface of what was happening beneath it. In secret labs, engineers and scientists worked tirelessly to reverse engineer the Empire's technology, using their own creations against them. The Empire's once unstoppable fleet had become the target of humanity's collective ingenuity. A group of hackers, known only as the Anomaly, had found a way into the Empire's communication network, sowing confusion and misdirection. The system, which was once flawless, now malfunctioned regularly. Ships couldn't communicate with one another, targeting systems failed, and vital data was corrupted. What had once been a precise, military machine was now a broken, chaotic force. On Earth, the laughter continued to ring out, but now, it wasn't just a distraction. The jokes had become strategies. Citizens who had never picked up a weapon in their lives were now organizing, banding together to take down the invaders in ways no one had expected. They had tapped into a truth about their own world, a truth the Empire had overlooked. Humanity didn't just have technology, they had unity. And that unity, forged through their shared experience of defiance, was proving to be more powerful than anything the Empire could muster. As General Zarek prepared his fleet for the final attack, he was unaware that something was happening on Earth that could shift the tide in humanity's favor. A group of civilians in one of the largest cities had managed to hijack a drone from one of the Empire's scouting ships. Using their limited resources, they had rigged the drone to carry a message so simple, yet so powerful, that it shook the very foundation of the Empire's operations. The message, broadcast to every corner of the galaxy, read, "We are humanity. We will not bow. We will not break. And we will never stop laughing." As soon as the transmission hit, something incredible happened. The soldiers aboard the Empire's ships, once certain of their victory, began to question everything. The Empire had always prided itself on its superiority, its strength, and its ability to crush anyone who dared oppose it. But now, it wasn't their weapons that were under attack. It was their reputation, their confidence. They had been brought low by the very thing they had thought of as a weakness, humanity's laughter. Inside the command room of the flagship, General Zarek stood before his officers, his mind racing. "We cannot allow this to continue. We must destroy them, or they will destroy us." But even as he spoke, doubt lingered in his voice. What if humanity's power wasn't just in their resistance, but in their ability to come together and create? What if the unity they had shown wasn't just a defense mechanism but the foundation of something far more dangerous than anything the Empire had ever encountered? As the Empire's forces powered up their weapons, a new revelation hit Zarek. It wasn't the Empire's overwhelming firepower that had failed. It wasn't their advanced weapons. It was something more fundamental, their inability to adapt. Humanity had found a way to fight back without matching the Empire's strength. They had found their own power, their unity, their creativity, and their sheer will to survive. The more the Empire tried to assert its dominance, the more humanity adapted. And it was this adaptability that made them dangerous. In a moment of clarity, Zarek realized that humanity's strength didn't come from their technology, but from their minds, their ability to think, to evolve, and to work together against all odds. But it wasn't too late yet. The final battle was fast approaching, and Zarek knew he couldn't afford to lose. But what if he couldn't win? What if humanity had already found a way to defeat the Empire, not with weapons or firepower, but with their minds? As Earth's resistance grew stronger, Zarek's confidence in his fleet began to falter. The moment of truth was coming. He had one final chance to crush the rebellion, or humanity would prove once and for all that it was more than a match for the Empire. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the resistance reached new heights. What had started as a wave of laughter had transformed into a fully realized movement. Each day, new plans, ideas, and blueprints were shared across the globe. Cities and nations that had once been divided were now united in the fight against the Empire. And through it all, the laughter never stopped. It had become a symbol of humanity's strength, a reminder that no matter how powerful the Empire seemed, they would never break the spirit of Earth's people. The Empire thought they could intimidate humanity. They thought their fleets and weapons were enough to bend Earth to their will. But as the resistance continued to grow, one thing was certain, the tables had turned. And now, humanity's laughter had become the sound of victory. The final battle was upon them. The Empire's fleet had gathered at the edge of Earth's orbit, their weapons primed and ready to annihilate the planet in one swift strike. General Zarek, standing in the heart of the flagship's command center, had no more patience for the games humanity had played. It had gone on long enough. The Empire had proven its superiority time and time again. It was now or never. Zarek's voice was steady as he gave the order to fire. Target the largest cities. Take out their centers of resistance. Leave nothing behind. His officers moved quickly, executing the order with cold efficiency. The Empire had never shown mercy before, and now, with Earth's last defenses crumbling, the general believed that this time, victory would finally be his. But there was something about humanity that Zarek couldn't shake, a gnawing doubt in the back of his mind. Every part of him told him that they were weak, that they had no hope against the might of the Empire. And yet, despite all the Empire's power, they had not bowed. They had resisted, laughed, and continued to fight back in ways he couldn't understand. As the countdown to strike began, something unexpected happened. A massive signal jam rippled through the Empire's fleet, causing a brief disruption. The Empire's systems flickered. Their targeting systems, the most advanced technology the galaxy had ever seen, began to misfire. What should have been a deadly strike against Earth now became a chaotic mess of miscalculated shots. The ships, once perfectly aligned, now struggled to find their targets. Inside the flagship, General Zarek's eyes widened as he realized what was happening. "What is this? What's going on?" he demanded. It was too late to reverse the damage. The signal jammers that Earth had placed were working. While the Empire had been focused on destruction, humanity had quietly developed countermeasures, hacks that infiltrated the Empire's technology and disrupted its most vital systems. On Earth, the Resistance had prepared for this moment. From the very beginning, they knew they were facing a technologically superior enemy. But instead of fighting with brute force, they had worked tirelessly to outsmart the Empire. They had hacked into the very heart of the Empire's fleet, turning their own weapons and systems against them. And now, the tide was shifting. As the Empire's fleet struggled to regain control, Earth's forces launched a counterattack. Humanity's ingenuity was no longer just a defense, it was an offense. The small but efficient fleet of Earth's spacecraft, previously built from scraps of alien technology, now surged forward. They weren't as large or as powerful as the Empire's ships, but they were fast, nimble, and equipped with weapons that used the Empire's own systems against them. Back in the Empire's command center, General Zarek's fury reached its peak. "This cannot be happening," he muttered under his breath. "We are the mightiest force in the universe. We cannot lose to these humans." But the truth was undeniable. The Empire's once unbeatable force was faltering. What had seemed like an overwhelming advantage was now slipping through their fingers. Humanity, with their unpredictable laughter, creativity, and unity, had thrown the Empire off course in ways no one had thought possible. As the Earth fleet pressed forward, targeting the weakened ships of the Empire, the general realized something he had never fully understood before. The true strength of humanity wasn't in their weapons or their technology, it was in their adaptability, their relentless spirit, and their refusal to give up. And just as Zarek began to prepare for his fleet's final stand, a broadcast from Earth appeared on every screen across the galaxy. It was simple, but it was everything. "Is that all you've got?" The message, once again, came from Earth, an expression of defiance, but this time, there was no laughter. Just a quiet, determined statement. Humanity wasn't laughing anymore. They had proven their point. They had shown the Empire that no matter how powerful you were, no matter how far your technology reached, nothing could stand in the way of a united species that refused to be intimidated. The Empire's flagship, once a symbol of invincibility, was now surrounded by Earth's ships. Their weapons, previously invulnerable, were now useless, and the Empire's entire fleet was being picked off one by one. As the last of the Empire's ships fell, General Zarek stood in disbelief. His empire, once the most feared in the galaxy, had been defeated by the very species they had sought to crush. In his mind, Zarek couldn't help but replay the events of the past few weeks, the laughter, the ridicule, and the final, unyielding defiance of Earth. It had all led to this moment. Humanity had won. But there was something else that lingered in his mind, a bitter truth that he could not shake. The Empire had come to Earth with all its power, all its might, expecting to break the planet's spirit. But instead, they had found something far more powerful, humanity's ability to stand together, to laugh in the face of fear, and to adapt in ways the Empire had never imagined. The Empire had tried to intimidate humanity. They had tried to destroy them. But in the end, they had underestimated the power of a species united by laughter, creativity, and an unbreakable will to survive. And as the remnants of the Empire's fleet retreated into the depths of space, General Zarek knew that the galaxy would never be the same again. Humanity had changed everything. The Empire had lost. The age of Earth's defiance had just begun.